Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Thursday, the 29th of October 2020. And earlier today we produced a video entitled World Gold Council Report on Gold Demand. A review. And we've placed a link to this in the description box below. Now this evening we're discussing with, controversially Greg, some of the global factors which are having and will continue to have an effect on gold and silver prices. So let's go straight to that interview. Well, it is Thursday evening. That's Thursday the 29th of October. At 1844 GMT plus 1. And we're going to talk to Greg mainly about the causes for gold and silver prices to have fallen this week, where we've seen that gold has come down by some $33 an ounce and silver by $1.26 since really Friday's close. So we've got silver currently trading at $23.36 and gold at 1869, both of which have in fact been lower during the course of today, with silver actually having been as low as 22.63. So it has recovered some 70 cents since then. And the reason for talking to Greg is really his unique view on the factors that will be affecting precious metals, which we've repeated in numerous podcast videos, essentially to be the US election, which is due on the 3rd of November, now only days away. Secondly, the extent of the coronavirus pandemic and what impact that will have on trade generally, and ultimately then the value of gold and silver. And of course, the impact overall of both these events and other geopolitical events on the value of the dollar, and which, as we all know, precious metals are priced in dollars, and therefore if the dollar strengthens, as a general rule, not a 100% rule, but as a general rule, when the dollar goes up, precious metal prices go down, and when the dollar goes down, precious metal prices go up. So without further ado, we'll go over to Greg, and I shall ask him really to deal with each of those, perhaps the American election first, followed by the pandemic, COVID-19, and then followed by other geopolitical events that could be affecting the dollar. Greg, good evening to you.
Good evening. I think the situation at the moment, as far as the American elections are concerned, is pure gambling, in that it is so much in the lap of the gods. We all know that polls and pollsters seem to gear their questions to get the results the way they want them to read, and the media will either be pro-Biden or pro-Trump at any stage or any particular company within the media. So it is now at a stage where, although Biden has a very noticeable lead in most areas, it is, in fact, in the lap of the gods, because we really don't know how the media has been rigging these figures to suit itself for stories. So I'm not even going to call the election at this stage, beyond saying that I incline to believe that Biden will win. I don't think it will be a resounding win, but I think there have been so many things adverse for Trump, particularly with a view to what is apparent mishandling of the coronavirus, the bellicose nature of his concept of dealing with foreign affairs, and the huge losses of jobs, whatever the reason. When you think that over 11 million women have lost their jobs since the beginning of March in America, that makes a staggering difference to the economy, because the women who are losing their jobs tend to be those who are most dependent on their jobs. Much of the, shall we say, middle and upper class of women are not in a work situation. They are within a family situation. It is the people who can least afford to lose their jobs are the ones with jobs to lose. So the economy is in a pretty parlous state, with most indices tanking at the moment. Shares have gone down, oil has gone down, and gold and silver have gone down. Not helpful for Trump. So I call it, if I'm to call it at all, fractionally more likely that Biden will win the election than Trump. And I concede I could be completely wrong on this, as there is a large number of people who blindly vote for Trump, as was shown in the last presidential election. So to move on, another situation that has affected markets around the world have been the cowardly and barbarous attacks that have occurred in France by those who claim to follow Islam. The beheading of bystanders and innocent citizens who merely uphold the views of the country and the values of the country in which they live is really an obscenity. And depressingly, though I would not for a moment claim that beheading people in churches and in the street, as has occurred twice in the last week in France, with a number of deaths and a fair amount of injury, serves no purpose for the Islamic community in the Western world. But a major problem, although the majority of followers of Islam would not claim that it was the right thing for anyone to have done, and many may well believe that this is a cowardly and barbarous act for which there is absolutely no excuse enshrined in the core of the religion, the Quran itself, or any responsible mullah. There is a remarkable lack of condemnation amongst Muslims, a remarkable lack of outspoken comment condemning these cowardly attacks, and they are upheld by the silence of countries like Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, none of whom have been outspoken to condemn the actions of this lunatic minority. It's been sad that just at this point in time, when it would be good to see our own government in the United Kingdom speak out in solidarity with France and very vociferously condemn what is happening, we're in the difficult position that France has been doing, it seems to us on this side of the channel, all that it possibly can to embarrass Britain and try to make Brexit as difficult as possible. Not for France's intelligent gain, but it looks all too like unmitigated bloody-mindedness. Because at the end of the day, France and Germany and the rest of what is the residual European Union will find itself in an exceedingly difficult position in terms of exports to Britain. Not a position that Britain will derive any pleasure from, but it cannot help either side in the discussion to have a no-deal Brexit. But it is far better that we have a no-deal Brexit than the type of Brexit that France particularly is seeking to force on Britain, whereby their idea of a level playing field is that we do everything they want, and they, for instance, are allowed to fish right up to our shoreline. One wonders how they can reconcile that as acting in good faith or with any kind of integrity. We also find that we are the subject of effectively an invasion which seemingly is encouraged by France taking no effort, or not a particularly visible effort, to prevent people leaving France, illegal immigrants, leaving in the hands of people traffickers to cross the channel to come to Britain. We appreciate that many of them don't want to live in France, but the rules of asylum are firstly that somebody must have a belief that they are in danger where they are, and the rules of the European Union are that any asylum seeker coming to the European Union must make application for asylum in the first country they reach within the European Union, not cross the entire continent, almost being sponsored as they cross the continent to invade Britain. So this has made a second very clear reason why our own government has not spoken out with the sympathy and solidarity that we would have otherwise liked to see for France's position at the hands of the cowardly jihadists and raving nutters who are committing these cowardly outrages. To move on, we look at the coronavirus, COVID-19, being its current mutation. We said right at the outset in March, when it became public knowledge to most people, that this was going to run and run. We hear endless promises of there will be a vaccine this week, next week, by Christmas, at the beginning of next year. However, I am incredibly skeptical of this, as to date, I know of no vaccine for any mutating virus. We just don't have vaccines for mutating viruses. We have had mutations of the coronavirus in incarnations from the Spanish flu, which killed many millions between 1917 and 1919. We've had SARS and MERS, which petered out fairly rapidly, although they had every potential of being global pandemics of consequence. We now have COVID-19, which has sideswiped us because it has settled in as a pandemic that we're achieving very little against at the moment. The only realistic figure to look at, in my opinion, is not how many people have died in any given country, nor how many people have been diagnosed with COVID-19 in any country. Firstly, diagnosis is a matter of how much money has been chucked at testing for the disease. And a country like America, with 331 million people, measures the 9 million who've had the disease against a country like India, which has a population of 1,300,000,000. So the figures mean next best to nothing. The only figure that is of consequence is the figure of the worst, let us say, 15 countries in terms of deaths per million. There you are comparing like with like, though there are some anomalies. There, America is 10th in the world with 700 deaths per million. The UK is 12th in the world with 667. And in fact, in those 15, they vary from 611 deaths per million to 1,000 per million. The anomalies come in with countries like San Marino, where 1,237 deaths per million puts them as worst in the world, but they only have a population of 33,000. So it really doesn't tell you very much when comparing with America's 330 million population. America has a major problem. It is not cooperating across its various states. And this is leading to a higher level of death that percentage per million, or should I say numbers per million of population, than would otherwise occur, because states are pulling in different directions. This is not helpful, and particularly not helpful when there are some states that are following their leadership and not wearing masks and claiming that the disease is not consequential, or, as happened right at the outset, are totally in denial of the disease, failing to wear masks, failing to act responsibly. Yes, that has made the situation worse in America. And I believe that will be reflected with the results in America's election on the 3rd of November, since the problems of the coronavirus have, for instance, with women alone, created 11 million plus jobs lost since the beginning of March.
Okay, Greg, thank you for that. But interestingly, you mentioned the economy. But today in America, and we reported this in an earlier video, today, gross domestic product for Q3 for the United States came out at a positive 33% compared with a negative 31%. And the initial jobless claims were better than expected, which means 1.09 million, and continual jobless claims 7.7 million against 1.11 and 8.47. So it does look as if, although of course still in a worse state than we were pre the pandemic, it does give the impression that the economy is actually starting to improve quite considerably. But of course, as we all know, Congress at the moment hasn't agreed a final stimulus. So my argument perhaps would be, yes, these figures have improved, but when the next figures come out, they could be considerably worse because no stimulus package has been agreed.
Not only has no stimulus package been agreed, there is a limit to how long you can go on chucking money at a problem. You've got to generate that money, and I question whether the government is in a position of generating it or just watching it pile up as debt. We know from reports that have come out that Trump is a master of leverage and stacking debt to his own advantage in his own personal life. Has this spread over to the economy with shaky future ahead as a result? I don't know, and I don't think anyone could be certain either way at the moment, particularly with an election very much up in the air, so close upon us.
Okay, well, before we go, Greg, as we've run out of time, any last minute thoughts in terms of what could affect particularly gold and silver prices moving forward, bearing in mind that they have dipped from their recent highs just under 2 months ago? Are you still confident for precious metals?
I am confident that the gamblers will continue. I'm also confident that gold will end the year, whether Biden or Trump win, higher by a notable factor than it began the year. So, yes, relatively confident.
Well, Greg, on that note, we have to end it. Thank you very much. What I can say, though, appears to be happening at the moment is that with the problems across the world, really, with the coronavirus pandemic, currencies are being affected and the dollar is rising, and we're only just below a dollar index of 94 as we speak, when it was only 92 something just a couple of days ago. And this obviously is having a dramatic downward effect on the price of, well, all commodities priced in dollars, gold and silver, and we're even seeing oil, where Brent crude now is only $37 a barrel and WTI crude is 31. So is 36. So on that basis, it looks like the dollar's the major beneficiary of all of this turmoil. And even equity markets in the US this evening have started to rise again after quite a reasonable fall of between 3 and 4%. Greg, thank you very much. I appreciate your contribution today.
My pleasure.
Now, we hope you found that interview of some use. and we have placed a copy of it in the Richard and Greg channel for those who perhaps only follow that channel and not this one, or who may actually miss it on this one but happen to be looking on the other. Thank you therefore so much for listening to this. Please, by all means, place any comments you may have in the description box below. They might not all be answered, but they're certainly all read. And if you haven't already done so, kindly subscribe to this channel, not forgetting to press the bell sign so you're notified of our videos as and when they're published, and also to pop over to the Richard and Greg channel and watch some of the videos that Greg and I have produced over there. And a final call out for earlier in the week, we also produced Hidden Silver Treasures Rediscovered plus Musings, which is a live video showing you some of the Silver Jubilee silver pieces that we found hidden in a cupboard, which had been there for a few years. Thank you once again. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.